Canto 7. Summary. On entering the fourth circle, the travelers are hindered by Plutus, the great enemy, as he was called at the end of the previous canto. He is the demonic god of wealth, not to be confused with Pluto, the god of the dead, and represents the avaricious souls who are behind him as Cerberus represented the gluttons. He utters words that are untranslatable, and yet that seem to be understood by Virgil, who waves him aside, calming Dante's fears. They descend to the pit where the greedy are punished. Here are both the spendthrifts and the misers, who committed opposite though complementary sins, both rooted in an inordinate love of money. One group loves hoarding what money buys, the other loves hoarding money itself. The consequence of their sin is to eternally roll giant boulders round and round in a circle, the spendthrifts going round in one direction, the misers in the other. At the 2 points of the circle where they meet, they crash into one another, accusing one another of their respective misdeeds. Dante notices that there are many clerics here, popes and cardinals, both of whom were consumed with extreme greed. The pilgrim thinks he should be able to recognize some of them, but Virgil corrects him. Here, the inordinate love of worldly goods has so marred and disfigured their souls that they have become unrecognizable. The nature of fortune is discussed at length as they continue down to the fifth circle. Shortly after midnight, in the first moments of Holy Saturday, the travelers approach the Styx. There, the wrathful are punished by being submerged in the swamp. They too are indistinguishable from one another, their humanity effaced by their sin. 2 kinds of wrath are briefly alluded to. First, the outright violence of physical brutality, and second, the bitterness of those who refuse to enjoy the good things of the world. The violent bite and snarl and tear one another with their teeth. The sullen abused the kind gifts God had bestowed on them through perpetual sadness. Dante is astonished as he watches them eat the muck they are buried in. Directly after this, they come to the foot of a tower. Canto 7. Avaricious and Wrathful.
Pape Satan, Alepe.
Thus Plutus began with a clucking voice. The gentle sage knew what the demon meant, and spoke these words to calm my fearful thoughts. Let not your fear give you any distress. What power he may have will not hinder either of us from descending this cliff. He turned back to the flaming lips and said, Silence, wicked wolf, feast on your own rage. It is not without reason we come here, through this darkness, for it is willed on high, where Michael punished the proud treachery. As sails, billowed out by the wind, collapse entangled after the mast is weakened, so did that cruel beast collapse to the ground. In this way we came down to the fourth pit, catching more of the wretched riverbank encompassing the evil of the world. Ah, justice of God, who, as I then saw, piles on many new sufferings and pains. Why does our guiltiness curdle us so? As the wave, there above Charybdis, breaks itself against that on which it crashes, so too must these people here, all jumbled. Here I saw a greater crowd than elsewhere, one part here, another there, screaming out, shoving weights by the force of their own breasts. Coming together, they would strike themselves. Then the one group turning to the other, they shouted back over their shoulders, Why? Why do you hold? Why do you throw away? So they ran around the gloomy circle, each shoving their weights against the other, shouting insults in disgraceful meter, jousting each his counterpart halfway round. And holding my heart as if it were pierced, I said, My master, reveal to me now who these people are, if those tonsured ones on our left were members of the clergy. And he said, All of these in the first life were so cockeyed in the mind that never up there was their spending within measure. Their voices bark it clearly when they meet, there at the 2 points of the rounding track where the contrary guilt sets them at odds. These were the clerics that did not cover their heads with hair, both popes and cardinals, in whom avarice employs its excess. And I to him, Master, among these types I should be able to recognize some that were made foul by those evils of greed. He said, Your thought is empty of meaning. The unknowing life that made them filthy makes them dark, unknowable to all eyes. For eternity they will be clashing. These here will rise again with grasping fists, and those with expensive manicured hair. Bad giving and bad holding removed them from the beautiful world into this brawl. What it will be, no words can beautify. Now, my son, you can see how worldly goods are made brief buffooneries by fortune, for which men always scold one another. For all the gold that is beneath the moon, or ever has been, could never bring rest to even one of these exhausted souls. My master, I said, now tell me also, this Fortune, whom you just alluded to, what is she whose talons grasp the world's goods? His answer was this, O foolish creature, how much ignorance is this that harms you? I desire that you feed on my judgment. He whose wisdom transcends all creation made the heavens and gave them conductors such that every part shines to every part, distributing all the light equally. He also gave to all worldly splendor a general minister to transfer transient glories offered by the world from time to time between all families, beyond the ken or common sense of men. For some people rule while others languish, according to all her ordained judgments, which hide from us like the snake in the grass. Your knowledge poses no challenge to hers. She judges, foresees, fulfilling her role. She rules her wheel like all the lesser gods. Her ever-changing dealings never cease. Necessity makes her to act swiftly, and thus the stations of men often change. This is she who still is placed on a cross, even by those who ought to give her praise, who malign with misguided blame and scorn. But blessed she remains, and does not hear them. With all else first made, she joyfully turns her sphere, content in given blessedness. Let us descend here to greater pity. Already every star that, when I came, was rising, now falls, and we cannot stay. We crossed the circle to the other bank above a spring that boils and bubbles forth down a channel formed by the overflow. The water was darker than dark purple, and we, in the company of dark waves, entered below by a separate way. Into the swamp, which boasts the name of Styx, runs this sad stream, when it has descended down to the foot of the evil gray shores. And I, who was intent on observing, discerned in the bog a muddy people, all naked with an offended bearing. These strike themselves not only with their hands, but with their heads and breasts and feet, tearing themselves apart with their teeth, piece by piece. The good master said, Now, my son, behold the souls of those who were conquered by wrath. And what is more, I want you to believe with certainty that beneath the water a people sigh, frothing up the surface, as your eye tells you wherever it looks. Fixed in the slime, they say, We were sullen up in that sweet air made glad by the sun, bearing within ourselves acidic fumes. Now we are embittered in the black mud. They gurgle this hymn within their own throats, for they are unable to speak whole words. We made a great arc round the filthy swamp, between the arid bank and the soft mire, with eyes turned to those feasting on the muck. Soon we came to the foot of a tower.